Welcome to our informational session on the Jonathan W. Cuneo COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellowship, focused on enabling new lawyers to pursue antitrust litigation as a crucial tool for accountability. We are going to have a recording of this info session available next week along with captioning, and that is going to be emailed to everyone who registered for the webinar as well as posted on our website. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us anytime at fellowships@justicecatalyst.org. We have the chat function turned off for today's webinar, but we will be taking questions via the Q&A chat box, and we'll be reserving time at the end of the info session to answer those questions. So first of all, I would love to just quickly introduce myself, and I'll let my colleague Alahe also introduce herself. My name is Renee Champ. I'm Deputy Director at Justice Catalyst Partnerships and Justice Catalyst Access Fund. I myself began my legal career as a fellow right out of law school. I have been an attorney in the legal nonprofit space for the past many years, and I now have the pleasure of running Justice Catalyst's fellowship programs, as well as working on our other philanthropic endeavors and litigation funding. With that, I will pass it off to my wonderful colleague, Alahe, to briefly introduce herself, and then we will dive into our content.
Thank you, Renee. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Alahe. I'm the program coordinator here at Justice Catalyst. I've been at our organization for almost 3 years now, and I help with various programming across our entities. And yeah, thank you. I'll pass it off to Renee.
Thank you so much, Alahe, and special shout out to Alahe for running all of the technical background to make this webinar possible. And to that end, Alahe is going to pull up a quick poll because we would love to understand a little bit about who all is joining us today. So without further ado, if you could just give us a quick answer to this poll, letting us know, are you joining from a plaintiff side law firm? Are you joining from a law school career office? Are you joining? And I'm not sure if the poll is up, Alahe, is it coming up?
It should be up.
Okay. It's not coming up for me, but that might be because I'm the host. All right. If folks are getting it, we are curious to hear where you're joining us from. And then Alahe, if you want to publish the poll, we can see the answers.
Sounds great.
Oh,
Okay,
wonderful. Okay.
the results.
I'm seeing folks joining from law school career offices, possible candidates, a few folks from plaintiff side law firms. So that's great. We have a great mix of folks joining us, and we are so glad to have you here. As you can see from this agenda, we're going to be going over some of the nuts and bolts of the fellowship. And then we're also very excited to be able to hear from a current host law firm and also member of COSAL, representative of COSAL, Pam Gilbert, and then also from our current fellow, Dejana Richardson. Okay, so with that, let me dive into a few details about Justice Catalyst itself, and then a little bit more about the fellowship itself. So first of all, we are a nonprofit that uses grant funding and philanthropic advising to support justice-focused legal innovation in a variety of ways. We have a focus on seeding new organizations and sometimes projects at existing organizations and on fostering collaboration between the different parts of the public interest legal system that we often see being very siloed. We have provided seed or early stage funding for dozens of organizations and projects, and some of the organizations or projects that we launch are relatively in-house. For example, Justice Catalyst Law is focused on generating cases with broad and replicable impact, and often uses commercial tools for social justice. For example, JCL is involved in antitrust litigation against the bail bond industry, antitrust and other legal theories against other parts of the prison industry, cases in the housing space, drug rehabilitation, and more. We also launched Justice Catalyst Access Fund, which is a nonprofit that provides recoverable grants to support nonprofits and other public interest litigators. It's a novel structure where organizations can draw down funds to support their work and repay out of case recoveries or fee awards, and only have to pay back out of those awards. If they don't win, they don't have to. And then finally, the Justice Catalyst Fellowship Program, which helps to launch new creative projects and new legal careers. With that context, I want to dive into more details about the COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellowship itself. So first of all, we believe the enforcement of antitrust laws is really crucial to promote class equity in the United States. By preventing large corporations from dominating markets and engaging in anti-competitive practices, antitrust laws help create a level playing field for small businesses and consumers, leading to increased competition, innovation, and fair prices. This, in turn, can help reduce economic inequality and promote a more equitable distribution of wealth and opportunities for all. So one way that we hope to support this mission is by supporting more folks to join us in this collaboration between COSAL and Justice Catalyst. So a little bit of information about the basics of the fellowship. We are providing opportunities through the fellowship for both in-person and remote/hybrid fellowships. This is a one-year fellowship with potential of one additional year of renewal via litigation funding. The salary for the fellow is determined jointly between the host law firm and the fellow, and to be no less than that of a similarly qualified and experienced lawyer at that firm. So the salary range for the firms participating in the fellowship program this year is between $100,000 and $210,000 a year, depending on the firm and the candidate's number of years of experience. Health insurance and fringe benefits are also provided by the host law firm, and there's potential for an offer at the host law firm coming out of the fellowship, depending on the firm and the circumstances at the time of the fellowship. So a couple fellowship highlights. This is an exciting fellowship because of our collaboration with COSAL. Not only do fellows have the opportunity to network and do peer-to-peer learning with our general Justice Catalyst Fellowship cohort, we also, thanks to the partnership with COSAL on this particular fellowship, have networking opportunities across key stakeholders for long-term careers in the antitrust litigation field specifically. And there are also opportunities through the fellowship to participate really meaningfully in multiple committees at COSAL. And then, of course, the opportunity to engage in deep, wide-ranging antitrust litigation. All right. With that, one question that I'm sure many of you have is about the application timeline, because this year we are changing the timeline for this nascent fellowship quite considerably to make sure that it's more in line with the application timelines for more traditional plaintiff side litigation careers coming out of law school. So to that end, right now, the full application is open on our website, and submissions can be submitted anytime between now and September 15th at 11 p.m. Pacific. The first step if you have not yet begun, is to reach out to one of the participating law firms with your resume and let them know that you are interested in being considered by that firm as a fellow to apply jointly with the firm for the fellowship. Once you have been selected by one of the participating law firms to be their fellow candidate to apply for the fellowship, then you go to our website and submit the application, which I'm going to talk to you about the parts of the application in a moment. And then interviews are in late September to mid-October, with final decisions coming by October 31st. I'm going to dive into a lot of open questions you probably have in a moment, but I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that general timeline, which has shifted earlier in the year from what it was previously. Okay. So a little bit about Jonathan W. Cuneo, who was a co-founder of COSAL, prominent figure in antitrust litigation, championing consumer rights against influential entities. And the Jonathan W. Cuneo COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellowship is a tribute to his legacy. It's focused on fostering a path for emerging leaders in antitrust litigation to continue the pursuit of accountability against powerful entities. And with that, I would love to introduce you all to Pamela Gilbert of the Committee to Support Antitrust Laws, or COSAL. She is the legal representative and executive director of COSAL and is also a partner at the law firm Cuneo, Gilbert, and LaDuca. She is quite the rock star powerhouse. She has over 35 years of experience in advocacy work in Washington, D.C., has testified over 50 times, and has also made dozens of appearances in national print and electronic media, and also happens to be a partner of the host firm, where we have our very first fellow who you'll be meeting later. With that, I'll hand it over to Pam to speak a little bit about her experience as a host law firm and as a collaborator making this fellowship possible. Hi, Pam.
Hi. Thank you, Renee, and thanks to everybody. Renee, thumbs up. Everyone can hear me and see me. It's all good. Okay, great. So thanks everybody. Great to be here. So I'm going to tell you, yes, a little bit about COSAL and the fellowship and our program. So COSAL is the Committee to Support the Antitrust Laws. It was established in 1986, so we are almost 40 years old, to promote and support the enactment, preservation, and enforcement of a strong body of antitrust laws in the United States. It is the only organization in the U.S. that's dedicated to lobbying both for strong antitrust laws and effective private enforcement of those laws. Our membership includes about 50 plaintiffs' antitrust law firms from across the country that prosecute private antitrust cases. The firms primarily bring class action lawsuits on behalf of consumers and small businesses against large corporations and monopolists that violate the antitrust laws. As Renee just explained, my late law partner, Jonathan Cuneo, helped to found COSAL after working as antitrust counsel for the House Judiciary Committee in the 1980s. John realized then that there were armies of lobbyists for big businesses walking the halls of Congress advocating to weaken the antitrust laws. But the only people that were holding the line against the attacks were honestly a handful of law professors and the congressional staff who are on Capitol Hill and who cared. But there weren't any well-funded pro-antitrust law lobbyists. There are today, but there weren't back then. So after he left Capitol Hill, John worked with leaders of the plaintiffs' antitrust bar to create COSAL, to be that force in favor of strong antitrust enforcement. And almost 40 years later, we are still at it, and we're stronger than ever. I also want to say that we have now been joined by many other allies in the anti-monopoly pro-antitrust space, and we welcome those collaborations, but COSAL remains the only organization that is dedicated to supporting private antitrust enforcement. So COSAL as an organization has long had a goal of encouraging recent law graduates to become plaintiffs' antitrust lawyers. We also are focused on increasing the diversity within the antitrust plaintiffs practice. And we believe that bringing in younger lawyers will help enormously in achieving that goal. So we are super excited that we are partnering with Justice Catalyst to offer opportunities to new lawyers to try out the plaintiffs' antitrust practice, to give them a chance to participate in important and groundbreaking litigation, and also engage with the broader policy work of COSAL. The fellowship offers great networking opportunities at the many COSAL events that are held throughout the year that hopefully will help in the fellows' career plans going forward. So a little later, you're going to hear from Dejana Richardson, who has been working at my law firm and is the very first Jonathan W. Cuneo COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellow. And so since you're going to hear directly from Dejana, I'm not going to talk too much about her, except to say that it has been fabulous and just wonderful for all of us at our firm to have her here since last year. And since she's been here, she's assisted in researching and drafting motions and complaints in many of our antitrust cases, and also in some of our consumer protection cases. She's also similarly been very active in COSAL, serving on our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and attending many events hosted by COSAL, both outside of DC and within DC, and also with the American Antitrust Institute, which we often partner with. I also want to just particularly note that even before Dejana joined our firm, she helped us organize an event that COSAL hosted in conjunction with the Democratic National Convention last year in Chicago. This event was entitled Promoting Competition and Fighting Corporate Power. 8 elected officials spoke, including 4 U.S. senators, 2 members of the House, 2 state attorneys general. And Dejana was instrumental in the overall success of that event. But enough from me about Dejana. You'll hear from her soon. So just to drill down a little bit more, the COSAL Fellowship itself has 2 parts. The fellow works as an associate at a COSAL member firm and must be assigned to at least one antitrust litigation. In our firm, Dejana was assigned to many of our antitrust cases. And our COSAL member firms are involved in most of the leading cutting-edge antitrust actions in a wide variety of industries, including big tech, food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, financial services, the list goes on and on. Our COSAL firms also represent workers against companies using their market power to decrease wages and worsen working conditions. Basically, anywhere there is corporate concentration and opportunities for anti-competitive behavior, COSAL firms are there to police the marketplace. And our COSAL fellows will be working on that very important work. And then, as I described, the other piece of the fellowship is engaging with COSAL. So this includes attending in-person COSAL events that occur throughout the year and participating in COSAL committees. Our committees provide fellows an opportunity to network with lawyers from other COSAL law firms, and often to hear from speakers from Capitol Hill or federal or state agencies. And for example, at COSAL's annual gala last year, Doha Meki, who was second in command to the head of the DOJ's antitrust division, delivered our keynote address, and it was kind of a stem winder. It was really great. Our committee work is varied, and it includes working with the amicus committee, where a fellow can work on an amicus brief filed in a federal appellate court or even the Supreme Court. Our policy committee, where we help analyze and comment on federal legislation and executive branch policies, and sometimes lobby members of Congress and their staffs. The Climate and Antitrust Committee, which very recently authored an article that was published in the Georgetown Law School's Environmental Law Review, concluding that agreements among competitors to follow sustainable business practices generally do not violate the antitrust laws. And Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, where Dejana is working, which sponsors a summit every year for individuals who are underrepresented in the plaintiff's bar. I think, so that's what our fellowship is about. I just want to conclude with saying that I think my favorite part of my practice these days is interacting with young lawyers and law students who are passionate about social justice and economic equality and see the antitrust laws as a key tool in achieving those goals. So for that reason, I just can't be more enthusiastic about the COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellowship Program, and I'm so pleased that the people who've tuned in today are interested as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Renee.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pam. So appreciate hearing from you. And for those of you who have questions for Pam, please feel free to start adding questions to the Q&A chat at any time, and we'll be tackling those at the end. Without further ado, let me share a little bit more detail about the application process for the fellowship, and then we'll be hearing from Dejana. All right, so first, I want to just say all of these details are available on our website, and Elahe will be dropping a link to the website in the chat. These are the participating firms this year. Every year, different COSAL member firms are invited to participate. And these are the folks who you will reach out to begin the application process. So first, you'll check this list and you'll say, okay, this is a firm that I'm interested in. Reach out to them via email at the contact provided here with your resume attached and inquire about their selection process to select candidates to apply for the fellowship. They will let you know what their particular process is for selecting candidates to apply to the fellowship itself. After you reach out to that firm, and if you are selected by the firm to be a candidate with them and apply for the fellowship, you will submit the application itself. So let's talk a little bit about the application itself. First of all, there are several different essay questions, all available easily to see on our webpage right now. Some of them ask for information about your personal background, experience in antitrust litigation, if any. And some of them ask about why you're interested in antitrust laws as a tool for accountability. We are really interested in hearing from candidates thinking outside the box about, beyond what traditional legal academia, our legal system and legal institutions traditionally push about the way that the law and legal system operate as a whole. And we're really interested in hearing about why you're particularly interested in antitrust laws as a tool for change. So you'll see those essay questions on our webpage. Again, that application is open and applications are accepted up to September 15th. The other pieces of the application package, all of which are submitted online through our website, are a resume. You do not need to include your GPA for purposes of the fellowship application itself, a couple of professional references, and a host commitment letter. Let's talk briefly about the host commitment letter. Your participating firm is well aware of this aspect of the application. We expect fellow candidates, for the most part, to do the bulk of the application itself with whatever level of engagement and participation their host law firm is able to provide. But this aspect of the application package should come directly from the host law firm. We encourage candidates, however, to work with their firm to ensure that this letter and all of these bullet points you see here, which are also laid out on our website, are included in that commitment letter. And then you'll want to get a PDF of that letter from the firm, and you'll be submitting it as part of your application package online through our website. Any questions about this, feel free to add them to the chat. Okay. I mentioned earlier when going over the application timeline, several interviews. So once you are selected by a participating law firm to apply for the fellowship with them, you'll submit your application online. And then in the fall, we will be interviewing select candidates. There are 2 interviews after you submit your application. The first interview is with a committee of COSAL. And then from there, you may be asked to do a follow-up interview with Justice Catalyst. Coming out of that second interview, final decisions are made by October 31st. So that is an overview of the application process. I recognize that it has multiple parts. I encourage you to go to our website and look at the step-by-step instructions and to ask us questions right now, right here today, and to reach out to us at fellowships@justicecatalyst.org at any time with questions. I just saw that someone raised their hand, but if you could enter any questions you have in the Q&A chat, we will be able to see your questions there. So go ahead and type any questions you have in the chat box. With that, before I hand it over to Dejana to share a little bit from her experience as a fellow, I would love to just share a little bit about the fellow cohort. So we fold our COSAL Justice Catalyst Antitrust Fellows in with our larger Justice Catalyst Fellow cohort. The cohort consists of fellows placed at nonprofits, unions, government agencies, and plaintiff side firms across the country working on a wide range of different issue areas. And it's a really incredible opportunity right out of law school to be able to interact with peers who are thinking from an interdisciplinary, multifaceted perspective about the law as a tool for change. We have group calls over Zoom. We hold workshops with national experts on a wide range of issue areas. So you're exposed to many, many different ways of using the law outside of antitrust litigation as well. We have a non-mandatory book/movie club that meets regularly. There is support from me and our team as you are thinking about your longer term career goals as well. And then we do quarterly individual check-ins, 2 via Zoom and 2 over writing, where we ask for updates on how your work is going, and you have an opportunity to touch base with us. So that's a brief overview about how we do some community building through the fellowship program. With that, I am going to hand it over to Dejana Richardson, our wonderful inaugural fellow, who's going to share a little bit about her experience as a COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellow. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us, Dejana.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm excited that you guys are joining to listen in. So my name is Dejana Richardson. I hope everyone can see me. The screen just went black. So are you guys able to see?
We can see you. Yeah.
Okay. I graduated from law school last May, and it's been such a journey. I have loved every second of attending COSAL events, attending AAI, which is the American Antitrust Institute events, getting to know Pam and everyone here at CGO. It's just been wonderful. And I've attended 2 fall past events, as Renee mentioned before. The book club events, they're not mandatory, but it's nice to attend those events and just to kind of get a pulse on like what people are doing. So first, I'm going to talk about why I was interested in the fellowship in the first place. So while I was in law school, I had an opportunity to work at the Colorado AG's office and also to intern at the U.S. District Court in Colorado. And my very first summer after law school, I was at the District Court of Colorado, and I was sitting in Judge Philip Brimmer's case where he was hearing the chicken antitrust price fixing case. And in that particular case, a lot of the executives, upper level executives from Tyson's, um, Food Corporation, also Pilgrim Pride, they were alleged by the DOJ to have essentially the chicken that they were selling to restaurants and also to grocery stores. They colluded in the pricing, and basically they were not very honest in the way in which they were conducting business. They coordinated prices, and also they were suppressing the market competition. So sitting in that case, watching the DOJ bring that case, unfortunately, it ended in 2 mistrials. But even still, the DOJ was able to bring that case and bring awareness. If you guys remember, like during the pandemic, food prices were getting like extraordinarily expensive. Not that they've come down anytime soon, but that was a really great case. So that got me really interested in antitrust work. And then I interned with the Colorado Attorney General's office, which I worked in the business affairs department. And I had another eye into a window into like how government agencies really work on behalf of consumers. I am very much a like, small like people side of things. I'm not very like, this is a fellowship that if you are very much interested in the protection of consumers, you're interested in ensuring that the welfare of society is met, this is the fellowship for you. The second thing I want to talk about is like the application process. What it wasn't very it wasn't as time consuming as, for example, maybe like writing a law school paper or if you're like drafting any motions. But it is something that you do want to put a lot of thought into, especially with your resume and formatting, highlighting if you are coming straight from law school, like what activities did you do if you were on journal or a law review, if you were the president of any organizations, if you did moot court, highlighting those things. If you are post, law school and you're coming from either a clerkship or, a job, you want to be able to speak to cases that you particularly worked on that highlight maybe like price fixing, monopolization, market collusion, conspiracy, those kinds of things. I would say once you sort of gather your materials and you really want to be able to answer the questions of why plaintiffs antitrust, what interests you, maybe a case that you've been following or something that you've looked into that really speaks to why you might be a good fit, and do your research on the firm that you are submitting your resume to so that you can speak to the work that they do and the attorneys that they have there. Some of the very interesting cases that I've had the pleasure of working on recently is the generics antitrust case. That one, I don't know how closely people have been following the news with respect to that, but that case was really about if you purchase, for example, your, pharmaceutical pills or medications or whatever, that case was brought by the DOJ and FTC. Actually, they were 2 separate cases, but essentially those cases talked about, once again, price fixing, market collusion, bid rigging, and it is what you would call like downstream effects. So, for example, if you have these large pharmaceutical manufacturers who say they go to, I don't know, someone like CVS or Walgreens or whatever your like local pharmacy company is, and then they say, okay, we're going to charge you this set amount of money for this particular drug. But then you might have, for example, independent pharmacies who probably can't afford to compete in that kind of market. So those downstream effects not only have consequences for independent pharmacies, but also independent resellers who might be smaller players in that market. The other case that I've had the pleasure of working on is the passenger reseller plaintiff's tires case. That case is really, really interesting because the DOJ was saying, listen, you know, not only are we bringing this case, but this case has been brought by the European Commission, the European Union Commission, and they conducted dawn raids. And so those were your larger tire manufacturers like Michigan, Pirelli, Goodyear. Those tires, they were taking replacement tires that you need on your vehicle, cars or buses or whatever, and they were setting artificially high prices. And typically what happens in cases like this when people are let's say people, executives or companies are found to or are alleged to have found to be rigging, price fixing, creating a monopoly in the market, whereas no one else can be able to enter that market, is they are essentially sending emails. There's usually some sort of communication between the executives, like text messages, they're having conferences, they're having dinners, they're, you know, sometimes at workshops or golf outings or whatever. And that's how these conversations come into play. And it's how complaints are usually saying, like, okay, we're drafting this complaint to say these actions lead up to these behaviors, and here's why it's a violation of antitrust law related to like the Sherman Act or related to state statutes or state consumer protection laws. So that those two cases were, you know, really phenomenal. And those are just some of the cases I've worked on. But as Pam mentioned, I've had the opportunity to draft like motions to dismiss. I've also had the opportunity to do RFAs. I've had the opportunities to sit in depositions. And so it really is a fellowship that's not like none other. And you really are able to see the impact of the work that you're doing, not just for consumers, but those like middle people in the market who might be like independent pharmacies, grocery stores, what you would consider to be the market players that are closest to consumers. So one of the really amazing things that I've loved about this fellowship is being able to attend either congressional hearings here in DC or attend the AAI COSAL fellowship events. I've attended one or at least two in Philadelphia. There's opportunity a lot of times, depending on which firm you go with, to be able to travel to watch the more senior attorneys or partners argue and try cases in federal court. One of my most favorite congressional hearings was on Capitol Hill, and that particular one was about like artificial intelligence and antitrust, and how does that come into play. Recently, that panel discussed looking at Epic Games, where Epic Games was a market player for people who play like video games online, and they were basically saying, Apple is prohibiting us from being able to reach out directly to our customers. At the time, Apple was like charging, as you guys know, if you're on the Apple ecosystem, Apple makes it, they sort of streamline it, and they are like, listen, you have to come directly to us in order to subscribe for a monthly membership XYZ. And Epic Games was saying, like, listen, this shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't have to, in order to reach our customers or consumers who are in the Apple ecosystem, we should be able to directly have them subscribe and not have to pay Apple to reach those consumers. Another case that was brought up in that congressional hearing was Amazon. For example, everyone uses Amazon. And it just talked about like how Amazon was punishing smaller sellers and pushing them, if those sellers were wanting to offer discounts to consumers, pushing them on the latter pages, something like 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, 10 pages. Most people, like myself, if you're scrolling on something on Amazon, you might look at the first 10 items, maybe 15, check out a couple of the reviews, and then purchase that item. Most times you're not scrolling all the way to the end of the first page or even getting to the second page. So that was brought forth. Also looking at Facebook and Meta, the concern of Facebook being such a monopoly, or Meta now owning Instagram and WhatsApp, and the consolidation making it harder for other participants to enter the market and be able to compete, and not feeling like competitors are suppressed. So that was amazing. I actually attended last month an American Antitrust Institute workshop, and that was a really great panel. If you do get the fellowship, or if you're also interested in some of the work that AAI does, they do a lot of great panels. And the panel that they had last month was talking about the state of antitrust and technocracy, which was really looking at like how do you balance good faith of the public, but also how are you enforcing the law? In a lot of these cases, the FTC, the DOJ, their focus is saying, okay, like we really need to sort of check artificial intelligence and technology. We realize it's a public good. We're not saying that we don't want people to be innovators. We don't want people to be creative. We want companies to be able to service people. What we are saying is that, those people who are not the larger companies like Google and Apple and Meta, we're saying that you can't also make the market so difficult for others to be able to participate and service consumers and be a public good. So really, this fellowship and antitrust is looking at the complexity of that, the long-term consumer welfare, and then answering, okay, what are the market realities, right? Because most people are like, a lot of big businesses are like, well, the market is not going to support that. The market will be fine. And courts often are trying to balance, like, okay, well, what are some measurable goals versus also making sure that we protect our consumers, making sure that there isn't predatory pricing, making sure there isn't bid rigging or market collusion. And so there's a lot of dynamic opportunities working with law firms and doing this fellowship. And I've really enjoyed working with Pam and getting to know her, and working with COSAL, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. Renee, Lahe, everyone, I would say everyone who does the fellowship, whether it's the antitrust one or the regular COSAL fellowship, has been just a pleasure. And I will stop there because I think I don't want to run out of time.
Um, Thank you so much, Dejana. It is so helpful and meaningful to hear directly from someone who has gone through the fellowship experience. And I really love the details about the litigation that you've been working on and all of the incredible opportunities you've had thanks to COSAL. So thank you so much. We are so proud of our first inaugural COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellow, and honored to have been able to be in collaboration with you through this fellowship. Okay, so we have got a lot of questions coming through. Folks, if you could try to direct your questions through specifically the Q&A chat so that we don't have questions coming in through two different chat forums, that would be helpful. But don't repeat your chat question if you've already put it in the regular chat. Okay, we can bring Pam back on up and start getting through these wonderful questions in our remaining 13 minutes here. First question, excellent one. If I've never done antitrust work, but I'm passionate about the underlying principles and the need for antitrust work, can I still apply? Or do I need to have previously demonstrated interest in this field through internships or clinical work? The answer I will give is we would love for you to apply regardless of your background experience in antitrust work. A goal of this fellowship is to foment more interest in the field. We do see a lot of folks applying who have been very committed throughout their law school experience to antitrust work, but that is not a prerequisite. Next question, can each firm only sponsor one fellowship candidate? It is up to the firm. I saw another question about how many fellows are awarded. We have at least one COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellow per year selected. However, depending on the strength of candidates, we may select more than one. So there is absolutely potential for selection of multiple candidates who apply for this fellowship each year. And to that end, firms are allowed to sponsor more than one candidate. That would mean that there would be, heightened competition between their candidates, yes. However, it is absolutely possible, and it is the decision of the host law firm whether or not they will do so.
Renee, can I jump in there?
Please.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I just
thank you, Pam.
We don't have too much of a track record. We've done this twice, right? This will be the third time, but it hasn't happened yet. Just want to say. So far, it's been one. Each law firm has just gone in with one, fellow, but it is possible, and it is up to the firms.
Thank you, Pam. Okay. Another question. If a 2L applies and receives the fellowship, how does that work? So this is a postgraduate fellowship. So if you apply during your 2L year, first of all, the first question is whether the firm is interested in selecting a candidate who would not be available to begin the fellowship until after graduation. But if they are, then that is fine. You would just begin the fellowship after you graduate. Next question. Okay, that's a bigger question I'm going to get to in a minute. So if we are rising 2Ls and taking courses in antitrust in our 2L year, would you recommend listing those on our resume? Absolutely. We love hearing about any coursework that is particularly relevant to the content of this fellowship. Definitely list that. Another question. Currently, I'm planning to take the bar exam in Florida. Are there any bar application planning considerations we need to take into account when pursuing placement at the various firms? Yes. If you are going to be placed at a firm, you want to be able to practice wherever that firm is practicing. So that would be a question specifically for whichever participating firms you are interested in being placed at. And as you can see from the website, the list of participating firms also says where those fellowships would be based and if they're remote. So you can speak with that particular firm about, their requirements for attorneys at their firm in terms of where they have taken and passed the bar. Obviously, those of you coming out of law school and beginning won't have passed before you begin the fellowship. And a conversation with the firm that you'd be placed at about how bar placement or bar passing works and their requirements at that firm is a good conversation to have at the front end. Let's see, our next question. Are 3Ls encouraged to apply for postgraduate employment? So if you apply for the fellowship, this fellowship you would be employed by the firm as a fellow. Okay, more questions. Are the applications rolling? In other words, is there a benefit to applying early? No. We wait until the application window has closed on September 15th to review all of the applications. With
Renee,
that said,
can I add something to that too? Sorry.
of course, yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, because although your outreach to the law firms, I would encourage as early as you can, because we went through this, and what happens is we get a bunch of applications and then start culling through them and talking to different applicants for the fellowship, and then more come in. And so what sometimes the law firms have chosen to do is to stop accepting at some point during the time where you can accept to go to the law firm, because at some point they have to stop accepting and start choosing, right? And so in order to give the fellow the time to prepare the application that then goes in. So it's true that the application, you can do it anytime up until September 15th, but this is the opportunity to reach out to the law firms, and I would encourage you to do it as early as you can.
Thank you for that, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
So another question, can we reach out to multiple firms for sponsorship? And should we also be submitting any sort of direct application to the firms themselves? So building on what you just said, Pam. Yes. So backing up and walking through the process again, the very first thing you'll do is you'll look at the list of participating law firms. Any firms that you're interested in being placed at as a fellow, you will reach out to by emailing them with your resume attached and saying, hi there, I'm interested in being considered as a candidate for the COSAL Justice Catalyst Fellowship to be placed at your firm. Can you tell me how I can be considered for sponsorship by your firm for this fellowship? You will then go through that selection process with the law firm. We encourage you to reach out to whichever firms you're interested in right away. Once you go through the selection process with the host law firm, if you are selected to be sponsored by that host law firm, you will then submit the application by September 15th through our website, which consists of some short essays, your resume, a couple professional references, and the host law firm commitment letter. We will be reviewing those applications in the fall. If you are selected for an interview, that interview will take place with the COSAL selection committee in the fall. After going through that interview process, if you are selected for the next round interview, you will interview with Justice Catalyst. And coming out of that, final decisions will be made by October 31st. So I hope that helps, because I recognize it's a multi-part application process and can be a bit confusing. And I also encourage you to all those steps are also laid out on the webpage if that helps. So I think I answered that question, that you can reach out to multiple firms. I would be very clear if you reach out to multiple firms and let them know upfront that you have done so. So maintain transparent communication with the firms. Okay, I'm looking at our questions. These are excellent questions. Let's see here. We are looking for an explanation of the difference between our fellowships. I would encourage you, because the answer to that is quite long and we only have a few more minutes, to look at our webpage. We have a webpage that has details about our general Justice Catalyst Fellowship as well as this antitrust fellowship. The general fellowship allows you to be placed at a nonprofit, a firm, a union, a government agency, focused on any issue area. So check that out. If you have follow-up questions after that, don't hesitate to reach out to us at fellowships@justicecatalyst.org. This is as Pam pointed out, the third year that we are going through this process. And so we receive a lower volume of applications so far for this fellowship because it's brand new. So while it is competitive, you have a good statistical chance of being selected as a fellow, and we encourage folks to apply if you are interested. I think that I have answered all of our questions. Do we have any final questions? We have a question about whether someone with an LLM is eligible to apply. If you are able to practice law in the United States, so you're taking the bar, then you are eligible to apply. With that said, each host law firm may have different preferences on that front. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to any of the firms that you are interested in being placed at to ask what their particular requirements are there. Okay, this has been so helpful to have Pam and Dejana join us. Thank you both once again so much. Elahe, if you want to pull up our contact info slide as we close out. Any questions that have not been answered, any thing that comes up for you as you're working through the process, do not hesitate to reach out to us anytime. We welcome any and all questions. We are here to support you through this process. We are so excited about this fellowship and so grateful for our collaboration with both you, Pam, and you, Dejana. Thank you both so much for taking the time to join us. And we are very excited to meet those of you who are interested in applying for the fellowship. So thank you. We are looking forward to receiving your application. Hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day in the meantime. Take care.
Everybody. Bye.
Bye.